Welcome everyone to Comics Week in Review, where the TM Stash crew talks about everything happening in the comic book world. I am Stephen McGauley, editor-in-chief of TMStash.com, and with me tonight is Ed Garrett, the senior DC writer for TM Stash, Joseph Gagel, our senior Marvel writer for TM Stash, and Nick Duran, our everything else writer for TMStash.com. How you doing tonight, guys?
Good, how's it going, guys?
Doing great.
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing good. Doing good. Just trying to stay cool. It's hot in St. Louis. But I'm not the only thing that's hot. There is also a new cover of a Marvel variant of Spider-Woman that is shall we say risque or hot, that's about to hit presses, as it sounds like Marvel had reached out to their Mila, how are we calling it, Mila Manara or Mila Manara, erotic an erotic writer from Italy. Did some erotic covers and erotic writing for comics and other parts of the world. Does a quite risque variant of Spider-Woman, and it's getting a lot of press. All of it not great. I won't show it just for the fact that most of you have probably seen it, and it's a bit risque. But what do you guys think of Marvel going this route for a variant cover of a comic?
Well, I'll just go ahead and throw mine in real quick. I can see what some people would have a problem with it, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. Comics have objectified women for the longest time. A lot of you probably remember in the '90s it was way over the top. It's been curtailed a bit since then, but it's still, it's still something that's there. This guy hasn't done, it's not his first time. He's been commissioned for several of these things by Marvel. It's also a variant cover. It's not the one you're going to see on the newsstand normally. And I've heard that Nick mentioned earlier it's the old one step forward, two steps back, but I kind of disagree. This year alone, Marvel has given new volumes to several female characters, 2 Captain Marvel characters, Black Widow, Elektra, and there are several other female characters that are in the forefront, including the new female Thor. So I just see this as business as usual, and let's not forget who they're selling comic books to mostly, guys. So,
but why even? My question is why even bother going out and making something this over the top defamation of women? I mean, there's so many women reading comics. There's so many different people reading comics, but why single out target demographic of men and make this unnecessary variant for a comic?
Let me come in with a little dissenting viewpoint too to Joe on this one. Of course, I'm an older guy, and so I'm going to have maybe be a little fuddy-duddy here on it. On the one hand, whatever Marvel wants to publish, whatever any publisher wants to publish, I'll defend their right to publish it. It's a free country. The First Amendment still applies, and they certainly have a right to publish whatever they want. That being said, this was about as tone-deaf as you can get. And yes, the main demographic these days is male, but that's one of the problems facing comics today, is the average reader of comics is around 35 and male. I don't think the comics medium is going to last for that being the target average demographic. And we've got to pull in a greater diversity of readership. And here's a book that's targeted ostensibly to female viewers. And yeah, we're seeing it there. If you see the whole picture, it looks like it's basically...
Oh, of course we're losing Ed.
It's a real unfortunate thing to do. Okay, can you hear me now? We'll check it out and see if you can hear me now. Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay? Okay, good. This looks like body paint.
Yeah, we got you, Ed. You're back.
Okay, good. This looks like body paint. Particular title, it's ostensibly targeted to attract female readers, and to put that on the cover is really just tone deaf. It's stupid. And you know, you're right. There's been objectification of women for years. That doesn't mean we should continue doing it. And this was a poor choice on their part for their trying to grow the readership. Now, again, you want to say they don't have a right to publish it? They've got an absolute right to publish it. But I just disagree with their decision. I think it was a tone-deaf and stupid decision to make.
I agree. I think it's tone-deaf. I think it's stupid. I just think it's stupid looking, to be honest with you. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. There's been so much talk, like in the recent years, if you look at like modeling and all these things of, you know, having all these, you know, super skinny models, and a lot of people have kind of been going back and using more like natural women, what women really look like in a day-to-day life, and having this crazy-looking woman with really skinny body, big hips, with her, you know, butt in the air in a doggy-style position is just, it's unnecessary, and it just seems like a way to sell expensive variants at comic book stores.
You know, there's no other place you could possibly get such pictures like this. There's nothing called the internet out there that's got these kind of pictures you can get for free. So it's just, I don't know. To me, it was a dumb move.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Go for it.
How many times have we seen Spider-Man in that position and no one's screaming out, that's weird?
Well, I'll tell you what, though, when Spider-Man's been in that position, we haven't seen his butt cheeks separated quite like that, so that it looks like a body paint costume. And I think that's part of it to me.
Let me post this. When's the last time we saw a variant of a Spider-Man comic with his junk just showing on the front cover, just hanging all out there from his tight spandex? Can somebody point me to that variant?
Fair enough. I'm gonna look for it.
Doesn't exist.
You're on Monday. If I find it, I'm gonna blow up your email box.
And I don't want you guys to think that I'm just blowing this off, but I think my biggest thing is that I do see exactly Ross' points, but this is more than likely going to be a 1 in 25 or a 1 in 50. So the chances of it actually being on the shelves and being seen by a lot of people are next to nothing, I think.
But it doesn't matter if it's seen on the shelves at this point, because the entire world has seen it, because it's on the internet and everyone knows it's coming.
All I know is the value's gone up on this variant right now.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where any press is good press at this point. For Marvel, they're just like, well, I mean, it's not good for us, but hell, we're going to sell a bunch of books. Because there's going to be more stores buying more books, which will get them more variants.
Well, we were talking about this earlier, and there's a X-Men comic geared towards women. It's a woman team-up, and it's called, I think, X-Men, right? Is it X-Men or X-Men?
It's X-Men.
X-Men. But the same artist did a variant for that, and it was just as suggestive, and it wasn't on the... It didn't get press, and a lot of these people complaining probably don't read comic books. But... with that said, I read also somewhere that about 45% of comic book fans are women these days, so I tend to agree with that a little bit. That was kind of stupid there.
Well, and to your point, I'm sure a lot of people who are complaining are not comic book readers, but that's the part that worries me. We want them to be comic book readers. And you know, if you're not fully into comics at this point, if you're not realizing some of the really good drama that's in graphic fiction right now, this is a good way to keep you pushed away where you go, well, there's no use getting into it. It's really just a boys' club. And that worries me. I want there to be something where we sort of take the boys' club, put it over to the side somewhere. This isn't Mad Men. This is, you know, it's an industry that hopefully is attracting more people to it. Now, DC did something, you know, recently with, or is in the middle of doing something with the Bombshells cover variants, which is not quite as salacious, but certainly is objectifying. It takes like the 1940s approach. I think you've got it on camera right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And certainly, you know, it's not salacious. It is somewhat objectifying, but Yeah, I think this particular cover, it bothers me, and you can pass it off with me being an old guy, but I worry about the medium 20 years from now, and for us to survive and have comics 20 years from now, I think we're going to have to bring in a different kind of reader than we bring in today, and this to me is not the way to get there.
I think Marvel, though, I feel bad that it's Marvel who's taking all the heat because they're doing more for trying to bring in women readers than any other publisher. They're the ones who's doing the Thor, they're doing the Miss Marvel, the Storms.
And they're far from the only publisher that's published something salacious. I mean, for heaven's sakes, you look at Deja Thoris over at Dynamite, wearing golden pasties, and that's her every issue.
Vampirella, Red Sonja.
There you go. And certainly there's been a lot of debate over Red Sonja's chainmail bikini for years, and about Black Canary's fishnet tights. It really is how you write the character that makes a difference, and those have become great characters to a lot of women as well. But yeah, it's out there all over the industry. It's a matter of what you do going forward. Now, again, they've got a right to publish it. They absolutely do. I just wish they hadn't.
And I mean, I have to bring this up, not to beat a dead horse, though, but I mean, what does this say? I mean, for younger audiences getting into comics. I mean, most of you guys all started reading comics when you were younger, and obviously for a 12 or 13-year-old male, this is a huge draw. But I mean, for children that are getting into comics, I mean, comics, the way I've always looked at them, are something for kids of all ages, especially a franchise like Spider-Man. So even though it is a variant, I get it, but what does this really do for children in the comic book world when it seems like we're catering to an 18 or over audience?
It'll make some parents a little wary of the comic book shop, and I hope that doesn't happen. There's certainly a lot of all ages comics out there that are really, really good. Some of them I think are great for any audience of any age, but parents need to be with their kids. They go to the comic shop. There's a special rack for all ages. You guide your kid over there. You make sure that that the teen and up kind of comics certainly are not good for the littlest kids. You certainly need to watch out for the mature rated comics, but I don't know. It worries me that some folks will look at this and say this is what all comics are, and I certainly hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just bad press for comics or Marvel and some comics in general, really. So for that reason, it's disappointing. But I mean, you're trying to sell more comics, so I get it. So I see both sides. But let us know your thoughts on the website. We'd love to hear what everyone else has to say and what all the readers really think about these type of variants. But moving on, we had some other news in the comic book world with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think we're getting a new villain, right, Joe?
Yeah, we're getting Carl the Crusher Creel, who in the comics is known as Absorbing Man, and basically he can absorb the, kind of like from the Heroes TV show, he can absorb the powers of anyone he touches, and that's all they really said. I think he's supposed to show up there near the beginning of the season, which starts on the 23rd of September at 9 p.m. And he's joining a lot of other interesting cast members like Hummingbird, Lucy Lawless is joining, and they've also casted Sky's father, who I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. I think that's going to be an Inhuman storyline myself.
Oh, bold prediction.
Wow. Well, there's been a lot of rumors about, since Guardian's success, that they're really going to maybe try to tap into some of their other mediums like that are kind of outside the box but feel like they could work. And everything that went on at the end of last season and how they described her family as being people one minute and like animals the next minute really does fit the Inhuman thing. And it's something they can test out on television, too. And if it works, they can bring it up. If not, they can just flush it. So... I doubt they get too testy with the waters with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because its numbers weren't exactly stellar. So it'll be interesting to kind of see where they go with that, so that they can hang on to their numbers and keep it going. You heard it here first.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. What else was going on in the Marvel world outside of television? What's going on in comic book world?
Well, there's a few really good issues this week. I'm going to start off with the most popular probably is the Wolverine Annual, and it was a really neat issue about him taking Jubilee out into the wild and kind of teaching her survival because, as everyone knows, his days are numbered. And so that's been the one character he's really bonded with over time the most, so he's trying to share that with her. They come in contact with some people that try to take her baby, et cetera, but it works out, but it was a lot better story than I really thought it was going to be. And it was just a really neat character piece on Wolverine. The next is probably could be the best one of the week, Magneto #8. Throughout his entire series, he's like Nick said earlier, he's kind of taken on a Punisher type role where he's kind of gone rogue. He's left the Uncanny X-Men, and he's been hunting down people that are, doing harm to mutants, especially this new mutant hormone virus, or not virus, but drug that's been passed around, giving regular people mutant powers, and it's like a drug. But there's a really big twist at the end where he takes this one guy who's masterminded it back, and he's told this guy, I want you to perfect it and return my powers to me, which is going to lead into the next issue, which is going to be really big precursor for Axis coming up in the fall. And finally, we've got Nova #20, which is an Original Sin tie-in where we really get to discover the fate of his father, where he is, and he's alive. And that's pretty big. Moving forward into the Guardians, which I'll talk about later on, and the other stuff with the Cancerverse that happened back in like 2007, 2008.
Cool. Lots of fun stuff happening. Ed, you had some news in the DC world. We had Multiversity this week, right?
Multiversity came out this week. I have, if you'll check out DC Corner, which came out a little bit earlier today, and you can find it on our YouTube channel and also on the main site. I go into a lot more detail on that one, but this one was basically full of huge Easter eggs all over the place. If you're a longtime DC fan, there's a lot that you'll find in there that's a lot of fun, and there's even some knockoffs of other publishers' characters all the way in there, from Mr. Fantastic and the Incredible Hulk to Savage Dragon and more. They're hiding in there, and it sort of sets up who the big bads are going to be of this one and why they're being pulled together. This is something that's been in the works for years. Grant Morrison has been working on this before Flashpoint, and it's a really interesting thing. It establishes a few things that are still canon, strangely enough, including the first meeting between Captain Garrett and Superman, which happened back in 1982. There's a mention of that as well. So there's a lot of wild stuff in there. We'll see how it turns into a series. But go over there to check that out. Also, Batman and Robin 34, part of the Robin Rises storyline. This is sort of a coda to the Death of the Family storyline. The folks who've been reading for a while know that sort of put the entire Bat family at odds with each other. They were very bothered by the fact that Bruce had hidden things from them. It really hurt the trust between all these folks. And this is his attempt to make things right before he goes off to Apocalypse by himself. So while it's not a huge storyline in terms of a lot of major developments, it certainly does add a nice wrap-up to some of those prior storylines, and I'd really suggest taking a look at that one. And then finally, Batman Eternal had Batman teamed up with Killer Croc trying to take down a menace in the Gotham underworld. It was really a good issue as well, and I am really enjoying Batman Eternal. That's the biggest stuff that we see this week.
Have you been reading Forever Evil at all, Ed?
Oh, yeah.
I think Eternal and Forever Evil being weekly series, they're great. They're big. And they give you a lot of characters, and I think they're both awesome series.
They really are. They really are. This is with Batman Eternal, you've got Snyder and James Tynion IV, who are sort of the masterminds of the overall story, but a lot of folks who take turns writing different parts of it. There's sort of writing a committee, which sounds like something dangerous. It might not work well, but for so far, the stories are really meshed together. It really works.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, what do we have coming up next week, Joe? Anything big on the...
Next week we've got a couple good original sin titles. The Thor and Loki 10th Realm continues. It might be the last one. I'm not completely sure. It's issue number 4, and that's been a pretty entertaining series. A big tie-in also is the Guardians of the Galaxy, where we supposed to learn the beginning of the fate of Peter Quill and Nova, who those who read the story arc back way when they disappeared for a while, they were in the Cancerverse, thought dead, and when they came back, a lot of people were like, how are you back? So this is supposed to explain a lot of that, which may include a deal with Thanos. The Fantastic Four, which has been a pretty interesting series, this team is, each issue they're just breaking them down more and more and more. You wonder if they're ever going to be the same again. Uncanny Avengers number 23, which has been an outstanding series. It's going to be a huge part leading into Axis this fall. Those who aren't into it, I highly recommend it. All New X-Men 31, which has been outstanding for me as well. Avengers 34, which is an original Sin tie-in. Silver Surfer number 5, and I think that's all I've got. Oh, Cyclops number 4, which has also been pretty good too.
Yeah, I've been enjoying Cyclops. That's a good series.
They're stranded.
Yep. Ed, what have you got in the pipeline for DC World?
Oh, besides Batman Eternal, there's going to be Batman Superman that sort of bounces off the First Contact storyline. The Flash 34 comes out here with the Future Flash continuing his run back toward our time. And Superman 34, this is the John Romita Jr. series, and they're continuing their Man of Tomorrow series on here with a new character, Ulysses. Over at IDW, there's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in Time, number 3 out of 4, and Transformers versus G.I. Joe. Image has got a bunch coming out. Black Science, Cal, Dream Police, and a favorite of mine, I got to tell you, Genius has been, if that story's not made, if it's not already optioned into a movie or a TV series, it ought to be. And you'll get the last 2 issues of that this week.
While you're on Image, just to mention, just because I caught this on my last Walking Dead and I forgot to mention it, I'm looking forward very much to this in October. They're calling Witcher, which is, we haven't actually gotten any press releases on from Image yet, but it showed up on the back of The Last Walking Dead, which is going to be a Scott Snyder book.
That's my favorite right there.
Yeah.
And I just saw Jock is drawing. Those
And Jock is drawing.
2 of my favorites in the comic industry.
So
I'm sold.
This is something to look forward to in October. I can't wait to see what this turns out to be.
Oh yeah.
There's not much on it. I would just check out the back of the latest 130 of The Walking Dead, but this is going to be good.
Yeah, it should be. It should be. Dark Horse has Captain Midnight coming out, which is one of my favorite series. If you're not getting into Project Black Sky over at Dark Horse, this is their attempt at setting up a superhero world, and frankly, it's working. It's good to check out. Action Lab, one of our friends, has a couple of new books coming out, Shinobi Ninja Princess number 1 and Hero Cats number 1, along with their mature, I know it doesn't sound like a mature title, but it is Bo Plushy Gangsta, about a gangster thug who came back to life as a teddy bear, and it is most definitely not for little kids.
I saw previews for that.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds awesome.
Titan Comics has Doctor Who, the 10th Doctor, that series number 2 coming out. And then Boom has Evil Empire number 4 coming out. I got to say, the Doctor Who books from Titan have actually been really good. And this one's worth checking out. The artist on here is one of my favorites, Elena Casagrande. She does a great job on the book. And just check it out.
While we're talking about Doctor Who, Ed, what did you think of the new Doctor Who?
You know, I liked it. There's still a lot we're not going to know yet, because when you have the first episode of a new Doctor, he's sort of playing a dual role. He's playing sort of the winding down of the previous personality and the booting up of the new personality, so you see aspects of both in him. but he certainly has all the quirks of a proper doctor. I actually like the relationship that's building between himself and Clara, almost better than with Matt Smith. I know that sounds terrible and almost like heresy. And there is a cameo from Matt Smith that will just tear your heart out. So it was a great show. I'm just looking forward to more. And near the end, when the guy settles into what his uniform as Doctor Who is going to be, his suit, I want that suit. I'm just telling you, I want that suit. It is just cool. So yeah, it's a good start. We'll see how it turns out. But I was very happy with the premiere.
There's always a transition period for me with new doctors. I never liked a new doctor at first. I didn't like Matt Smith at first, but then turned out to like him. And so I'm not liking the new doctor right now as much as Matt Smith, but it's only been one episode, so I'm sure that'll change just like it has in the past, and I'm sure many others feel the same way. It's always tough replacing a doctor.
Oh, I miss Matt as well. He was great.
But sorry to go off on a tangent, but I couldn't ignore Doctor Who. Anything else you got for us, Ed, this week?
That's the big stuff for the week.
Excellent. Anything you're looking forward to, Nick?
Yeah, well, Ed already said a couple of them. Obviously, the Image stuff, Cal and Black Science are, and I've written about those in the past. Those are some of my favorite series out right now. A couple that I don't know if Ed mentioned on DC, they're not as popular. I like Harley Quinn's coming out this week. I really like everything Amanda Connors have done with that series. It's lighthearted, it's funny. It's a little ridiculous, but it's great. And I think Aquaman, I'm kind of hoping Aquaman kind of gets back to how well it did at the beginning. And then Future's End.
Awesome. Lots of fun stuff to read this week, as there is always just too much for me to read in 1 week. But pick and choose your battles, find what you like. Thanks so much. What you got, Joe?
You said earlier you saw Sin City. How was it?
I almost forgot, yeah. Sin City was good. I've read some mixed reviews about kind of the pacing and kind of how it goes back and forth in telling the stories. Is A Dame to Kill For is kind of a hodgepodge of a few different books put together, including a couple books that were made just for the movie to kind of drive the story. They do kind of bounce around a little bit with the story, as it did in Sin City, and it doesn't quite have the flow of the original Sin City, but I like the storyline. I thought that the story was good. I think the acting was phenomenal, as you would expect from that type of cast. I will definitely be going into more detail tomorrow night when we do our Comics Week in Review Movies Edition with myself and John, our senior movie editor on the website. So me and him will dive into that a little bit further. But I would recommend comic book fans to go out and see it. I know it didn't do too well in the box office numbers-wise, but I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. It was a good movie. It's only about an hour and a half long, and it's fun with all the added visual effects that they had this go around with it. It really looked awesome, and the whole city was just really cool to see, and the story is good enough to hold up. So I recommend everyone to go see it.
From what I heard, it sounds like it was the Jessica Alba show. Was she? I heard she just killed it.
Yeah, she was awesome. She's awesome. The story kind of evolves around her, but she doesn't do a lot. But it's funny, the story kind of still evolves around Nancy. So she was kind of the center of everything that was happening, encompassing in the movie with all the different storylines that are going on. So yeah, and she's easy on the eyes. So she makes it.
Obviously, we didn't get through to you in the first topic.
No. It was good. Go see it. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Like I said, on the movie edition with John and I. But that pretty much wraps it up for Comics Week in Review. Thanks everyone for coming to watch us. Subscribe to us on YouTube or catch us on iTunes soon, as soon as we can get everything up there. But thanks a lot, everyone, and keep reading the stash.